I'm super excited to be joined by three amazing leaders who've been, I would say, amazing champions within this space, both within their own organizations or groups that they've represented in the past, as well as at the Achieve Engagement community too. So I am super excited to bring them to this space too. I think we should just jump right into it. I would love to like kick off the discussion right off the bat, and as we do this as well for the three of you, Monica, Jasmine, Ralph. Maybe introduce a little bit about yourself, your role today, and and some of the things you're working on. But I would love to kick it off right off the bat here. So Monica, I'd love maybe if you starting with you, share a little
Yeah.
bit about your role, things you're working on, and what are some of the things that you just see in this world of appreciation and recognition. And when we start to kick off this conversation on the different models and frameworks around it, which we'll go deeper in as a group, but like what are some of the things that you're just starting to see or experience with that space?
Yeah, thank you and appreciate being included in this. I'm Monica Gillespey. I'm Chief People Officer at Lumistry. Been in HR for, well, we don't really need to go into that. We'll just say I've been around the block a time or two. Really enjoy being able to be part of a company that appreciates and has that culture of appreciation. That's something that's really important to me. And it's important for companies that I work with to make sure that they actually have that as well. Creating that culture is so important, and making sure that you have everybody on board is critical. I think at the very beginning of looking at various programs and what is out there, making sure that we're meeting with our leadership teams and ensuring that they are going to be part of it as well, because you really need them to be your champions of the program. They really need to be the ones who are setting the tone, setting that example, and kicking things off. You asked specifically about some of the things that we're working on. One of the things that we have found, and I think other people have found this as well, is you've got to stay fresh with your appreciation programs. It can't just be the same old thing day after day after day, because people will get bored with it and will stop working towards it. So making sure that you are changing it, looking at new things, implementing new ideas. One of the things in the last session they were talking about, and a couple other people were talking about this, is a taco program. We also have a taco program, and we have a redemption store for our tacos where you can accumulate tacos and then trade them in for various items. And we switch that out about every 6 months just to make sure it's not the same old thing. And really getting it from the employees as far as what's important to them. Because I can sit here and make up programs all day long as far as what's important to me, and I would probably get it right for me every single time. But we're all different, right? We're all at a different stage in our careers. We're at a different stage in our lives, what's important to us, those kinds of things. And finding out from your people what's most important to them is the best way to get that appreciation program that people are going to be committed to, involved with, and that will actually create that culture for you.
Thank you, Monica. And I'm already hearing a few themes that we'll probably have to dig a little bit more deeper into, right? Like leadership's role in this and role modeling in this. And then there's kind of that authenticity and relevance as well, right? Like, how do you keep it fresh, relevant, and
Mhm.
authentic and not just like rinse and repeat this appreciation that gets like, are you actually appreciating me or are you just kind of running the system over and over again, right?
Right.
So I'm excited to dig into that. And I love the comments already of like, are there burger points or ice cream points? I think I'd be on the pizza point side of things. I'm eat pizza every day. So let's keep this rolling. Jasmine, I'd love to call on you next. Yeah, share a little bit about yourself and what are you seeing about the different models or the power of appreciation right now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is going to be really hard to follow behind Monica. But I am Jasmine Francis. I will say how many years I've been in the HR field. It's been about 16 years. I originally actually started my HR career in really large fintech organizations. So it's given me the opportunity to kind of see what it's like working with these large organizations. And I've transitioned over to smaller organizations and startups. And now I have the opportunity to see that And I will say, just kind of based on what I've seen, it's really interesting to see the variety in the cultural differences and what organizations really savor as these are things that are worth rewarding. I agree with Monica as well. From a DEIB perspective, everyone wants to be recognized very differently. We're all motivated by very different things. There's some people who like outward, recognition in front of other people. And there's other people that aren't quite comfortable with that, and that's okay too. So for a recognition program, it really isn't something that can be rushed. It needs to be really thoughtful, as she said, a lot of buy-in, and really understand who's your target audience. What do they want? So I'm really excited to, jump into this conversation and dig a little deeper.
Amazing. Thank you, Jasmine. Yeah, who's your audience? Now we're getting into personalization, right? And tailoring things. And I remember talking to someone that, we've heard about maybe the book, The Love Languages before. I've heard about now, what are the appreciation languages out there? Like, do you understand
Exactly.
different ways that people want to be appreciated? And are you able to speak to that language, right? So that's going to be part of this model that we discuss as well. All right, Ralph, I'm coming to you here. Share a little bit about yourself and yeah, obviously representing and working in the nonprofit sector as well. I'd love to hear, what does recognition start to look like, or some of the things you're experiencing on that side of things.
It's going to be really difficult to follow up without repeating all of the great things that have been said so far. But hi, everyone. Glad to be here. My name is Ralph Kellogg. I am the Vice President of People and Training at Lutheran Family Services. We're located in Omaha, Nebraska. I was trying to do the math in my head. I'm going to be 54 next month, so I think I've been in HR almost half of my career, so almost 25 years. And one thing that I would say, especially in the field of human services, in the field of nonprofit, it's really, really important that you make your recognition specific to the individual. So I know Jasmine talked a little bit about who's your audience, who are you looking at. In line of recognition programs, I think the corporate recognition program is important. I think it's important for people to know that they are valued and appreciated at that corporate level. But we all know that the relationship between an employee and an organization really hinders on the relationship they have with their manager. So I think it's really important that the manager take time to work with their staff, learn the folks that are working with them, develop relationships with them, and find out what's important to them from a recognition standpoint, and really work to cater to that. I think over the long term, you'll see a greater return on investment if you invest in the relationship. And as Monica said earlier, it's not something you can set and forget. You need to make sure that you're keeping it fresh, that you're keeping current, that you're staying invested. And one way to do that is to invest in the manager-employee relationship.
Beautifully said, Ralph. Thank you for that. And now I'm starting to see there's kind of maybe these two buckets that I want to unpack with all of you. Is on one end, we look at like, what at scale, what does a recognition and appreciation program look like from an organization? And that might be something you as an HR department are building out, and you're trying to build like systems and processes that spread across the entire company. But then there's kind of like that funnel down, and that more personal, intimate recognition relationship, and that comes from leadership and managers and their daily and weekly interactions with their team members and employees and things like that. So those are kind of maybe two things that we want to dial into. So, and everyone listening, I would love to make this interactive with all of you as well. So if you have questions or you have things that you're dealing with, like shoot that in the Q&A, shoot that in the chat. I'll have them open. I'll be able to maybe bring them into the conversation as we go. And also, if you do anything in your organization today that might be worth adding to the discussion, put that in the chat too. I'd love to hear and learn from some of your own programs as we discuss these different things. And I think on one end, we'll start to unpack these different models and ways that we can start to do this, and maybe share some case examples specifically of how these leaders have scaled programs across their company. So I'm really excited to dig into some of the things that we're already discussing here. So Ralph, I want to come back to you right away and start thinking about the different programs that you may have launched in the past. And I remember talking to you about this 369 program, and it seemed like a really powerful way to kind of build a little bit of like a ritual and a routine to checking in and recognizing people. Can you share a little bit about that program, or how that's impacted some of the things related to engagement and retention and some of those different elements?
Sure. So the 369 program really stems from an issue that we had at Lutheran Family Services regarding retention. When we looked at our metrics, we found that almost 47% of people left within the first 9 months of their employment. If we could get them past the 9-month mark, we generally had an opportunity to retain them. But the 9-month marks, there seemed to be some sort of short circuit there that we needed to address. So we introduced the 369 program, which stands for 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months. And so what that is that at the 3-month mark, and by this point, they've gone through formal orientation, they've met their mentor, they've gotten settled in their environment. We will do a in-person interview with the employee. It's 15 minutes. It's nothing strenuous, just to make sure that they have everything that they need, that they've met with their manager, that they feel connected to their team, that all of the basics are being met, and that they have a sense of what they're responsible for doing. We'll come back at the 6-month mark to make sure that they've received formal check-ins with their manager, that they feel that the job that they applied for is the job that they're actually doing, that they feel psychologically safe in their environment. And then right before the 9-month mark, we'll do another one where we will check in again with them, and we'll ask them, we'll do a quick net promoter score with them. Would you recommend LFS as a place to work for friends or family? These sessions are all done informally, but we do collect the data. We are upfront with them that we collect the data, and we let them know we want this to be a place where you want to invest your time and career, or your time to develop a career. And so, we let them know that we're doing this because we care, because you're important to us. The work we do is important to us. And without you, we can't do the work that's meaningful to clients. What we found, and we only implemented this last year, what we found is it reduced turnover by 18%, just in that first year. So it didn't fix everything, but it definitely had a marked impact on what we were doing. And then if we did find employees were sort of waffling or unsure or felt as though they weren't connecting, it gave us an opportunity to intervene with that person's manager right away, to say this person might be at risk of turning over. We need to get in front of them. We need to figure out how to connect with and deepen that relationship so that they don't leave. And the feedback that we've received from new employees at their 1-year mark has been great. Again, it didn't eradicate the turnover issue completely, but it certainly did help with those who have stayed on. So again, it's that one-on-one connection from a corporate level, which is HR, and then making sure we get their manager connected with them as well.
Wow. I mean, 18 percentage points, that's huge, right? Like what that means for the bottom line, that's going to be incredibly impactful. And especially for any organization, that's incredibly impactful, but for an organization like yours, every dollar really does count, right? And I want to come back to you right away, Ralph. And one of the questions that we always see, and I kind of see in the Q&A already, is one on the personalization side of things. Like, how do you actually personalize appreciation? And I'm assuming part of these check-ins and those high touch moments are actual key moments of how do you personalize it, right? Like, you're asking and checking in with them. How do they want to be appreciated? You're building in that data to understand these things. And that's going to be something you can bring into your strategies in the future. And then to build off of that, my follow-up question for you, Ralph, is, Robin added this into the chat too. Trying to set up an appreciation program, but we have no budget for it, right? And whoever has a budget for anything in HR, right? So I think that's a big challenge first. But yeah, how do you do recognition with no budget? And it sounded like some of your strategies in our past conversations were almost what we kind of talked about, like almost old school, like thank you notes and more personalized interactions that probably don't cost anything other than maybe some print time, right? So
Right.
yeah, could you tell us about maybe like ways that you've managed to maintain recognition, but on a really no budget or zero budget type
Yeah,
environment?
the recognition on a budget, absolutely. So what we did initially is I went to Walgreens actually, and I bought a bunch of thank you notes, and I brought them back to a manager meeting, and I just said, we need to acknowledge someone who's done something great, or that you appreciate, or that's meaningful for you. Our agency is dispersed across the state, and Nebraska reminds me of Texas. It's wide, so we don't always get a chance to interact with each other in person. So what we did to personalize things was not only have the manager write the note and be specific in what they were thanking or appreciating the employee for, but we had them sent to their home address. So it wasn't an inter-office mail, here you go kind of thing. It was really done with a lot of personalization behind it. We've invested in getting e-cards for people. I think they're like $135 a year for a subscription. So for birthdays, everyone gets an e-card. Everyone gets a little acknowledgement of birthdays. We do that also for anniversaries. Again, there is some expense, but those things that we've implemented, the thank you notes, the e-cards, the anniversary notices, they've all been done for under $1,000. The other thing that we did is that we engaged with our marketing department to use LinkedIn and other social media sites to say, hey, here's our new person and here's what they do. We also do employee spotlights where we'll say, you know, Ralph's been here for 4 years and this is what he does and this is why he's appreciated, and a little quote from the person. Those kinds of things, when you show that you're investing in the individual and you're really connected to them and what they contribute to the organization, are really, really powerful, and they don't cost a lot of money. They're easy to implement and they don't cost a lot of money. But the thank you notes in our organization, the handwritten thank you notes, those have had the biggest bang for the buck that we've seen. People love those and they will hang them up in their cubes and proudly display them. So that kind of personal recognition still matters.
Yeah. Yeah, I think never discount the power of a handwritten note or letter or connection point from another person, right? Like those things do go a long way. And we started the chat with like, what are the best things you've received, and all these trips show up on there, right? So you feel a lot of this pressure of like, well, I can't send someone to wine country in California, like, so what am I supposed to do here? But again, like, don't discredit some of these high touch, personalized interactions that you can have. And I remember one of the programs we implemented at the last company I was internal with was a walk and talk program. And it was just, I mean, this was in person. We had a park with, the pathways around the park area. And we simply just did walk and talks, and we would pair people up with executives to go on a 30-minute walk around the research park. And it was almost like a mentor or mentee type experience for the person that was being recognized or awarded with it. So again, only took a little bit of a time, totally free to do. And there's plenty of ways to get creative with that. Yeah. Medina, glad you like the walk and talks. They're always fun. And you can do those even virtual now over the phone. Just pair up a call and set up meetings and connection points between people. So, yeah. All right, Ralph, I'm going to let you off the hook here for a minute. Monica, did you want to jump in there? I saw you kind of perk up a little bit there.
I just wanted to say about the handwritten notes. We do that as well. And really, the first time we did it, had no idea how well that was going to go over. We were getting messages back for weeks after we implemented. Oh my gosh, got my card in the mail. Thank you so much for sending me that. And it's just like you were saying, Ralph, just a handwritten note. Thank you so much for all that you do. So glad that you're part of the team. And it goes such a long way with making people feel appreciated.
Yeah.
So love that.
May I add one more?
Yeah.
I think I'm a really big believer in sponsorship, mentorship, and exposure. And I think maybe another, low cost approach could be number one is providing that person that you want to recognize with an amazing mentor, like really taking the time to understand from that individual, what are the areas you want to grow in, and then matching them with someone much more senior who is really skilled in that area. On the other end, I think giving them exposure. So again, understanding like what are their strengths, what are their opportunities, and then on top of that, maybe just giving them access to a room they typically wouldn't have access to, a decision-making process they wouldn't have access to, so that they can feel like they're providing input, which is a really, that's a really big deal. Like, oh, I was in the exec room today and I got to hear XYZ. So just wanted to throw out another idea.
Yeah. Yeah, like professional development opportunities, like that is a reward, right? In many ways. Like obviously we want to always be developing our people in many different ways, but maybe providing access to a mentor, to certain yeah, just development opportunities that someone, is being rewarded with. Like that is a very, very amazing benefit there as well. Jasmine, I would love to kind of follow up with you right away as well, because I think some of us have always wondered, and I'm sure some of the individuals in the chat here are also wondering, sometimes it's like, okay, how do we make sure recognition is also connected to our values and our culture and kind of has like someone has like a recognition philosophy or strategy? And then what do you consider like how do you consider what to recognize and when to recognize, right? Because on one end you want to create this culture of appreciation where it's happening all the time, but you also don't want to do it to the point where it's diluted and it becomes less meaningful, and you're just getting you came to work today prizes, right? So it's
A for effort.
yeah, exactly, right? So can you share a little bit of your perspective on that? Like how do we keep it connected to the culture, and how do we figure out like when and what to recognize and make sure it's at least still impactful?
Yeah, sure, sure. I mean, I think there's a couple of ways to look at it. I consider employee recognition as part of the employee experience. And I actually, I really appreciate what you were saying, Ralph, about making sure that new hires feel seen and feel heard. That is a type of recognition, right? Recognition can look like a lot of different things. On the other hand, recognition doesn't always have to be at the organizational level. It can be on the team level. It could be on the functional level. And so you really have to figure out what works best for your organization. From my experience, I think there's a lot of ingredients that kind of go into the special sauce of what to recognize. Number one is, to your point, values. I mean, the values are really like the guidebook for how people operate within an organization. So I do believe in making sure that you're rewarding people who are living that is important. But more importantly, a couple of other factors are what is the long-term goal? Like, where's the business going? Are we going towards becoming an organization that's going to become public? We might want to start recognizing different things. So thinking about the longer term goals, or even like the short term goals, because to what Monica said, you always want to do the refresh. So thinking about that from a business perspective, I think also another piece to really think about is, um, you know, sorry, oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Um, oh gosh. Oh, okay. Wanting to make sure, what's the budget. That is really important. Understanding who your people are, that's really important. Understanding what do you want to see more of within the organization. So if you really value performance, then you want to recognize performance. If you really value people who are learning new skill sets, that's what you want to recognize. If you really value, on an organizational level, only people who get promoted, or maybe someone or people who finished a massive cross-functional project, whatever you decide to recognize is what you're encouraging your people to continue to do. So you want to make sure you're extremely intentional about what you want your people to do, not only now, but over the next 3 6 months. And then maybe shifting that as the business changes, because as the business changes, the culture may be impacted. What you want to highlight may be impacted. So there's a lot of ingredients that go into it. And I think just making sure that you really have an ear on the ground with your business strategy, your people strategy, your budget, and your target audience.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you really hit on that stood out to me is like getting really crystal clear on the values and the behaviors that matter most to you as an organization, and then how do you create recognition and appreciation, strategies that help
Mhm.
uplift and reinforce those things, right? Because, and I see a question in the Q&A or two, which we'll dig into a little bit deeper, but how do you avoid the pitfalls of encouraging the wrong behaviors. And I think that stems from a strong foundation of like clarity around what you're really trying to support and reinforce versus just maybe someone unconsciously going through it and then all of a sudden it has this backlash impact in some way. It's like you kind of need to be crystal clear on the front end right off the bat.
I agree. And there was one organization that I worked at where it was an organizational participation of deciding who to recognize for certain things. So it was like values awards. And, there was a survey that people got to fill out deciding, who from their perspective have they worked with that illuminates X value, Y value. And then when the time comes to recognize those people, sharing some of the quotes that the voters had, submitted in the survey, I think was really cool too. So trying to make sure as many people, I would say not always, but as many people are involved as possible helps to mitigate like the favoritism. When you have the same people making the same decisions, it's going to be the same people getting recognized, which doesn't feel great. So keeping that diverse is super important. Maybe if it's even changing who's deciding that every time you're deciding who to recognize, again, keeping it fresh.
Yeah, yeah. No, I appreciate that. I remember hearing one organization or network, they have an actual like recognition employee resource group. So rather than having that's kind of how they structured their employee resource groups. It was more around like these like listening resource group, and they had a recognition one. And this was a very diverse resource group in terms of people from different departments and levels of the organization were represented on that group. And there were really people on the floor who could maybe encourage or support maybe that diversity and ensuring some of those things are happening. So Monica, I'd love to hear a little bit more. I know when we start talking about customizing these things or at least building a comprehensive program to support our recognition initiatives, because sometimes we might start with one element of the program, right? We're going to have our annual high achievers award, right? And that's kind of the first thing that most companies do. And then they might implement that core values award that happens on a quarterly basis. And then sometimes it kind of stops there, right? And now we're struggling to actually create a culture of appreciation. And I've always been impressed by your model and the extensiveness that you've implemented, the wheel of appreciation. Can you tell us about that? Like the different modes or models of appreciation and how you've maybe built out that wheel over time?
Yeah. So I think, again, just want to reiterate that the very first thing, you got to find out from your people what's important to them. So the first thing we do on our wheel of appreciation is we do the survey with our employees. What's important to you? What makes you feel appreciated? And that is really the basis for how we design our program. But there really are three basic things that we feel are critical to include to make sure that the program is successful. One is you have to have peer-to-peer recognition. It's so important for people to be able to recognize each other. And at multiple levels in the organization, we may not see what's going on day to day, but having that peer-to-peer recognition allows all of us to see that day-to-day activity that's going on and being able to celebrate in those successes. And then also having an opportunity for your people leaders to provide recognition to people. And then the third part is being able to have your executives provide recognition. So that's the premise that we've built our program around. And for the peer-to-peer recognition, we do a couple of different things. We have the Employee of the Month, which a couple of years ago, we had so many nominations for Employee of the Month that we actually went to 2 Employees of the Month. So we now have 2 of them every month, which actually works well. It's not a huge cash prize, but it's a cash prize that gets to that individual. We call them out in our all-staff meeting. Everyone who received a nomination also gets acknowledged and called out, but we make a big hoorah about the people who actually won the Employee of the Month. The other thing that we do, and we talked about this a little earlier, is we have our taco program. And being here in Texas, tacos are huge for us. We have them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So having these is great. They are not actual, somebody's going to show up to your door with a bag of tacos, but they're virtual tacos, right? Everybody gets 5 per day that they can give out to anyone they want to for whatever reason they want to. And we have that integrated with Slack, and everyone in our organization is in Slack every day. So we all get to see that. Had no idea how well that was going to go over. People are throwing tacos left and right all over the place. I looked at some stats just a couple of days ago, and of the 2 years that we've had this program, we've had 138,000 tacos go out to people. So people like it, they're using it. We had a day, gosh, it's been a few months back where something wasn't working, and they were like, "Oh, I can't use my tacos today." We also make a big deal about calling out on our leaderboard who's been giving the most tacos and who's received the most tacos. And we do that in our all staff meeting. So that's a very public recognition as well. So that's what we're doing on the peer-to-peer. And then for our people leaders, they have an additional recognition piece that they participate in where they can give out a quarterly core value awards. So as Jasmine was talking about, making sure that you're stressing those core values, reinstating the importance of those, making sure that everybody's abundantly clear of what those are. That award really highlights those for us, and having that come from our people leaders is significant because it gets them involved in the progress of that and the program, and making sure that we are recognizing those individuals that are doing things that are promoting our core values. And then that third piece is the executive recognition. And for us, what we're doing, we have 2 different awards that we hand out at the end of the year, and these come directly from our executive team. One is our Employee of the Year, and the other one is our Rookie of the Year. So someone who's been with the company 2 years or less, that's really made an impact in the time frame that they've been there. The other piece that we have is just other stuff that comes up, right? As Ralph was talking about the handwritten notes, we include that as the other piece, the handwritten notes. We have appreciation lunches where our executive team will make lunch or breakfast or whatever for the rest of the staff. For Employee Appreciation Day, actually both this year and last year, our executive team made pancakes, bacon, sausage, and we handed them out. We actually served the teams that were in the offices. So I think those things are really important, in making sure that you're tying all of that back. Again, core values, your business goals, and making sure that everyone can participate and a part of it is super important. If we didn't have people who didn't have laptops, having that virtual taco program wouldn't work for us. So you have to make the program that you have work for you and your organization, because we're all a little bit different, right?
I love that kind of framework, right? And one of the things I really appreciated also is you centered the strategy on the peer-to-peer recognition first, and then embedded the leadership and the executive recognition on top of that, where I feel like sometimes we do it the other way, kind of the other direction first, where it's like, okay, let's do an executive recognition type strategy, and that's your quarterly or annual type stuff. And then we try to build the peer-to-peer, but I really appreciate like setting a foundation culturally. How do we unlock that within our organization and between people with each other, versus it being a start, like it's starting as a top down. So right. I think that's really important, maybe like order of operations type thing in this strategy.
Yeah. I think that's super important as well. And, I think like Jasmine was talking about, it has to be intentional, right? It's not something that you can just throw together in a day or two. You really need to put some work behind it, what's going to be important, and make sure that you have the buy-in, and really look at different resources out there. Tacos work for us, but they may not work for everybody.
Yeah.
But knowing your audience, as you said, and revolving your plan and planning it around those individuals and what's important to you as a company, as well as you as employees.
So coming right back at you with this question from the Q&A, and Michelle asked this, which I think is such a great question. Would it be possible to cover how to avoid pitfalls of recognition programs? Like if it seems like favoritism or unintentional or unhealthy competition and things like that. And I'm just thinking about, such a robust program you've had over, 130,000 like tacos right. and stuff like that. Like, what have you learned throughout the time of, things that like, oh, that was something we didn't see, we had to change it, that was a pitfall, or maybe we did it in a certain way where it caused unhealthy competition or behaviors? Are there certain things that you've learned that you would want to shine a light on for the community here?
Yeah, I mean, going into the taco program, knowing that everybody gets 5 tacos per day that they can give to whoever, we found out that there are certain teams that give their tacos out to certain team members every day. And we kind of had a talk with those individuals and said, hey, that's really not what it was created for. We're really looking for recognition of going above and beyond. Maybe they worked on a project with you. And I think we've got a good handle on that now. And I'm sure there's still some of it going on that maybe we don't see on a daily basis of tacos just being given because I want to give you a taco today.
Yeah.
It's okay in the whole scheme of things. When people redeem their tacos, we have a whole taco shop that they can go to redeem, and it's based off of the numbers of tacos that you have. And we want people to use that. I mean, it's such a great way to be able to recognize people. And when I was talking about earlier, the recognition and making sure you have something that people want, we found a site that we're using that not only has taken our logo and put it on some swag items, some pictures of swag items, right? T-shirts, water bottles, whatever. But then the people can order it if they want it. And it's not anything that we've had printed that we have stashed away in a closet or somewhere. It's a one-off item that somebody can order if they want. And they're like, hey, I want it in pink today, so I'm going to order it in pink. They can do that if they want to. But things like that have really worked for us. As far as the other programs we have, like the core values, we said early on that we wanted to make sure that that didn't become a popularity contest or that there wasn't anything negative going on with it. So what we said is anyone who gets nominated by a people leader for that core value award is going to receive the award, regardless of why they were nominated for it. Now, it does have to be based off of one of our core values and exemplifying that, and they write us out a definition of what happened, the specific event as to why they're nominating that individual. And we read that out in our staff meetings when we acknowledge those awards, and everybody gets to hear what it is that somebody has done. So we really haven't had a lot of incidents of it not being used appropriately. And I think the design of the program has helped with that. Because again, our goal is to highlight individuals for going above and beyond and acknowledging the things that we do for each other. And, you know, Zach, you may just be helping me with a project today, and neither one of us, let's just say, didn't do anything extraordinary, which I know isn't true because we all do every day. But let's just say I wanted to give you a taco and say, hey, thanks so much for your help today.
Mm-hmm.
That works for us.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's easy as leadership teams or HR departments to think of all the things that could go wrong when you implement a program, and then you don't end up doing it at all because you're trying to craft it so perfectly on the front end, and you're just thinking, yeah, is this going to reinforce certain things, which is important scenarios or questions to ask yourself. But I also always remind myself, like, don't allow 1 or 2 bad apples to ruin a really good program, right, from happening or being implemented. So I think in most cases, as Monica shared, do the program and you can follow up with a conversation directly to those individuals that might be engaging with those type of behaviors that don't align with the intention, and navigate that difficult conversation, right? But don't allow, you know, maybe 1 or 2 bad experiences to withhold a really beautiful thing from being implemented. So
Exactly.
Ralph, I'd love to get your perspective on when we start to see having different types of dispersed teams and custom, like, especially, yeah, having dispersed teams or somewhat of a what can feel like maybe a disconnected organization in some ways. It can be hard to customize these programs for remote employees. Can you share a little bit how you use tools or maintain some of that personal touch when you have that type of environment?
Yeah. So the first thing that I would say, more often than not, is don't take your remote team for granted. I know that in some organizations, you know, it's oh, we'll just have a quick meeting with Zach and we'll leave Jasmine out. Jasmine's remote, it's fine. We'll catch her up later. Those kinds of things automatically begin to exclude people and begin to erode your the positive culture you're trying to achieve. So if you try to come behind that with a recognition program, it's going to fall flat because people are going to think, well, you don't acknowledge me, day to day. Why would I care about your recognition program? So really, really important that you intentionally include those folks. The other thing that I would say too is if you are onboarding or bringing on somebody who is new to the organization who will be remote, try to, as much as possible, take extra time to welcome them to the organization. So one thing that we do if someone's going to be remote, the manager calls them before their first day. They welcome them on. They make sure that there is a point of contact, that this person knows that this is my manager beyond getting an offer letter in the mail. We do a formal onboarding session with our remote employees. It's about 5 hours to make sure that they have everything that they need, from the tools, being the computer, that they know how to sign on, and then we really dive into our culture. The next thing that I would also implement is that if you are working in a remote environment, make those touch points more frequent than you might if the person was in the office. So if that individual, if the individual is brand new to the organization, instead of meeting maybe with them, once a month, you meet with them every other week to make sure that they're getting what they need. I also think the other thing that you need to figure out is really take a time to do a discovery call with them to figure out, how do you like to receive recognition? How do you like to be communicated with? Do you like to be communicated with an email, or do you like a personal phone call? All of those kinds of things help establish a relationship, and it's difficult when the person is in proximity to you. If the person is in a remote environment, you as the manager have to work 3 or 4 times harder to bring them into the team. And then the last thing that we do, or that we encourage our folks to do, is to make sure that there is a welcome lunch, virtual welcome lunch with the new team member. So we will send out Grubhub or DoorDash gift cards to the remote team member. They will get lunch on the company as well as the other folks. It's not a high cost type of thing. And we'll do a virtual lunch, and we'll go around and we'll get to know each other, and we'll have conversation and do the whole breaking bread kind of thing to get to know somebody. And it's fun and it's relaxed. And the one rule is we don't talk about work. There's no discussion of work. We talk about who we are as people. And the idea is, if I can get to know you and know what you like and find commonality with you, I can begin building a relationship with you. And that's really the cornerstone of connection within the organization.
That's great. And I appreciate it. And this goes to maybe my closing question for the group as we start to come up on time, unfortunately, as well. But some of the things I'm hearing you talk about there, Ralph, is like the objective of these programs in so many ways is connection and trust and building those elements within your organization, right? And that leads obviously to higher levels of engagement and performance for your teams and your company. So as you're building out these programs, remember foundationally you're doing this because you want the deeper connection with the people that they work with the organization that they're representing. They want to build a deeper sense of trust in that relationship as well, where, okay, this person does see me, they do hear me, they do recognize me, and that does build trust between that relationship. And just understand that's kind of like the objectives of why you're doing this, and another way to keep your executive team bought in as well as you're doing this. So closing question to kind of think about the outcomes, the impact, why we're doing this. I would love to hear like closing thoughts on, as the HR leaders might be implementing these things, what are ways that you can start to ensure these things are impactful? Like, how do you track impact or results, or make sure that your recognition efforts are actually making an impact and working, right? So if you could provide maybe some closing thoughts on that, I'd love to maybe wrap up that discussion with this really difficult question. So Monica, you want to kick us off here?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of data points that you can use to measure how successful your programs are being. Over the course of yesterday and today, I think a lot of that has already been mentioned. So things like employee experience, employee engagement, turnover, feedback that you get, performance, those kinds of things. And there's so many different ways that we can measure those. But I love what Ivy said in her presentation that she gave yesterday, that you really have to look at it as an investment, not as a cost. Because I think that is so critical, especially when you're trying to get buy-in from your leadership. But taking those things that are those data points, measuring those, using that ROI to figure out what that is going to look like is critical. And, just making sure that your team is bought into it and really developing that culture of appreciation will go a long way. People say this all the time, but if you take care of your employees will take care of your customers. So if your employees are feeling appreciated and like they are being treated really well, that's going to extend to your customers, which ultimately will be really good for your business. And it all starts with that culture of appreciation.
Thank you. I heard this quote recently of respect their existence or expect their resistance, right? So it's kind of like appreciation is a way to show respect for your people. Yep. Jasmine, any closing thoughts or things that you would add to that and as we kind of wrap up this discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with everything that Monica said. The ROI is super important, especially when you have to present that to the exec team and really ask for more funds or want to continue certain programming. ROI, you have to have that data. So surveys, sometimes survey fatigue can happen, but just asking, via survey, did you feel recognized? I mean, that's like a really low lift ways. Also, just getting people together and putting peer groups together and saying like, hey, what did you all think of this? I think it's okay to try different things. If if something doesn't work, you can try something else, until you get it right. Exit surveys, I know for me, I've always seen in exit survey data when people are like, I was never recognized for anything. So that could be a before and after point. Are people still saying that? Is the turnover reduced? Also, participation. Are people participating in the program? Are people redeeming, points or whatever the offer is? I think that says some things. And then to what Monica also said, when you have a feedback culture, it's completely normalized to share what you think of things. And I think it prompts you to be able to get more information better, to decide how you want to move forward, if you want to change things. So feedback, I would say, also super important.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Ralph, in a minute here or less, take us home, bring us home on some closing thoughts.
I feel like I like when we started, it's going to be hard to follow up with Jasmine and Monica. I don't know what else to say at this point, but the one thing that I do is I just ask people. I will randomly call people in the organization and say, hey, I noticed that you just started. I noticed that you just received this recognition. I noticed that you just did XYZ thing. How did that feel? Who celebrated with you? And that's what I say, who celebrated with you, not were you recognized. And generally, when you say the word celebration, they'll tell you, well, my manager sent me a card, or so-and-so did this for me, or so-and-so did that for me. The reason I use the term celebrated is not only do I want to know that people are being recognized, but I want to know that they're being advocated for and supported, and that the behaviors that we want to see more of in the organization are lifted up. So when all else fails, if you don't like surveys and you don't want to do that, call people. Just get on Teams or get on your cell phone and just call them.
Perfect way to wrap that up. And yeah, can we recognize and appreciate these amazing panelists, everyone? Like, that was a great discussion. Thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise with the network.